Okay, we're back on the record on case CR 22-21-1624, State of Idaho versus Lori Vallow. We just completed the lunch break. The jurors are all back and accounted for, properly seated. The state's going to be calling another witness here shortly. Before we do that, I'll note that I've met with counsel in a sidebar to discuss scheduling. Essentially, the state's case in chief has been moving forward a little more quickly than may have been anticipated, and in order to avoid some gaps in trial time in the middle of days next week, there's been a proposal that we not have trial tomorrow on Friday and then start back up again with a full week on Monday. I think that's what the state's requested. Is that correct? Would somebody from the prosecution confirm that?
Yes, Your Honor. The case is moving much more quickly than we thought, so it won't delay the end of the trial at all by doing that. So that's our request.
Okay. Thank you, counsel. Is the defense concerned at all about having a day off tomorrow?
No, Your Honor. That's fine.
Okay. I appreciate you working towards that and letting the court know in advance. So for the jurors, again, we'll discuss that at the end of today, but we'll not be conducting trial tomorrow. We'll start again on Monday. That'll be our schedule moving forward. So, and as mentioned, it's not going to extend out the total time of the trial. The trial's just coming along more quickly than had been anticipated. So with that in mind, then, one other thing I'll note is there is a technical issue that's being sorted out right now, and it relates to the ability to show the demonstrative exhibits or use the overhead projector. So I'm fine with tech people in here working on that as we go, because we're here with some witness testimony we can commence with. If that's reset, we'll let you know. If we need to take a pause while they work on that in order to show exhibits, we'll deal with that when it comes. So with that in mind, then, let's see, Mr. Rammel, I think you're going to be calling the next witness. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. If you'd like to call your next witness, you can do so.
Thank you, Judge. The state would call Detective Bruce Mattingly.
All right, before you commence with your examination, Counselor, I'd like to just inquire of the witness who's now sworn, Detective Mattingly. Have you viewed any of the trial testimony in this case since it started?
No.
Okay. With that in mind, then, I'll just ask you to please speak directly into that microphone. Try to avoid, make verbal responses to all the questions so we can keep the record straight, and try to avoid talking at the same time as anyone questioning you. Keep our record clear again with those rules in mind. Mr. Rammel, you can go ahead and inquire on your direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, can I have you state your full name, spell your last name for the record, please?
Thomas Brewster Mattingly. Last spelling is Mattingly.
And Detective, where are you employed?
Fremont County, Idaho Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
22 years.
And how long have you been employed in law enforcement overall?
Sorry, let me restate. Overall in law enforcement, 22 years, and as a detective for the last 6 years.
Okay. And are you post-certified?
I am. I hold a master's certificate at Post.
You testify that you're a detective. Can you quickly tell the jury about your current duties and responsibilities as a detective in Fremont County?
Yeah, current duties for me in our county is anything that comes across my desk or assigned as a detective, which mostly will be felony cases, and then with that also assisting with other deputies in their investigations or things that they are assigned to. And also I work with evidence, logging that in, logging it out, and also with that will be death investigations.
Detective, I'm going to draw your attention to January 3rd of 2020. Were you working as a detective for Fremont County at that time?
Yes, I was.
What were you working on that day?
We were executing a search warrant at Chad Daybell's property located at 202 North, 1900 East in Fremont County, Idaho.
And Detective, were other agencies involved?
Yes.
Was FBI ERT on scene?
Yes, they were.
Detective, were you involved in the initial search and collection of evidence from that residence?
Initially, yes.
And after the execution of that search warrant, did you take possession of items found at that location?
I did.
And can you explain to the jury how that came about?
Yes, the ERT team collected the evidence, and then they gave that to my lieutenant, Joe Powell. And Joe Powell and I took those items to our station in St. Anthony, and we put them into evidence, and then after that I logged it into evidence.
And you have detailed evidence logs of what you logged in?
Yes, each item is numbered sequential and with a description of what those items are.
Detective, who has access to your evidence lab?
So that'll be 3 people. That'll be myself, Detective Vince Kayakakamanu, and Detective Jim Fabinich. Jim Fabinich. Spelling of... Yeah, Jim Fabinich. Spelling of his last is Fabnich.
Could you spell the other detective's name also, the last name?
I can. Kayakakamanu. Kaiakakamanu.
All right, that's what I thought.
Detective, on a later date, did you take additional action with items that were booked into evidence on January 3rd of 2020?
I did.
What was that?
So on January 15th, I took the items that the electronic items that we had taken from that location to Salt Lake, to the IWR CFL, which is the Intermountain West Regional Computer Forensic Laboratory.
And were those the same items, or the same electronic items that you booked into evidence on January 3rd of 2020?
They were the same.
How do you know?
From the property log, they were the same ones that I had taken and submitted into evidence, and so I knew which ones needed to be taken, and I just followed the same property log that was associated with that search warrant to be searched.
And Detective, were they transported by vehicle?
They were. I transported those.
And during that transportation, did any of those items ever leave your custody and control?
No, they did not.
What did you do after arriving at the Regional Computer Forensic Lab?
I took those electronic items to the lab and transferred them into their custody.
And did you provide identification at the lab?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, that's all I have for this witness.
All right. Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Detective Mattingly. That'll conclude your testimony this afternoon.
And Your Honor, and this has been discussed with defense already, we do have Detective Mattingly under subpoena, and we're not going to be releasing him from that subpoena. There will be other unrelated items that he will be testifying to in this trial.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rammel. So, Detective, you'll be remaining under subpoena at the direction of the state to be recalled as a witness. During that time, please continue to avoid viewing any of the trial testimony in this case in any way. You'll be asked about that again if you're recalled to the stand. With that in mind, you can be excused for the day, and the bailiffs will direct you out of the courtroom.